All right, now, Rofhiwa, as we all try to understand the new tariff proposal by Eskom, is NERSA likely to grant the change?
Well, that's the big question, Masach, and I'm about to find out with my guests in a moment. And the context that we want to provide you here with, and that is our viewers, of course, is that Eskom wants to adopt a new payment structure, but it has assured users that costs won't change. It will see you paying before you even using electricity in some instances. Now, the utility says that this will ultimately lower the cost of power. It also wants to review subsidies to homes in certain areas. Eskom has submitted a newly revised tariff structure to the energy regulator NERSA. It says existing tariff structures need to be modernized to reflect the changing electricity environment. Now, if its revisions are accepted, you could pay ahead or a different amount for electricity from April next year. Let's talk more about this now with independent energy expert David Lipschitz. David, thank you very much for joining us as always. Perhaps if you could start by giving us a set on your thoughts on this tariff structure that has been proposed by Eskom. There are some analysts who say it's not a bad idea, but we had some on the channel yesterday who indicated that it's absurd and it's not something that NERSA should even consider.
Hello, Rofhiwa. Good to be on again. I've read the document. It's a long document, 120 pages. It's got a lot of graphs and so on in it. I think that it misses the point in a very big way, because what it's trying to do is it's trying to move the tariffs that Eskom charged to its big users down to its small users. And what happens with really big users is firstly they get a time of use tariff, which means they pay different amounts at different times of the day. I think that's very good if that comes down to homeowners and small users and so on, and rooftop providers. I think that's a good thing, except that the really big users have to pay R500,000 a month to get that tariff. If you're spending 5 million rand a month on electricity, it makes sense to spend a R500,000 a month service fee to get a better tariff structure with a variable rate where you can move your consumption to different times of the day. For example, 2 o'clock in the morning instead of, say, 7 o'clock in the evening. But what Eskom are trying to do with this latest document is they want to charge everybody the same kind of tariff structure. So now, somebody who has three-phase could find themselves moving from 1,000 rand a month to 4,000 rand a month before they even buy any electricity. So that's very unfair. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when a power station is designed, the off-taker, which means the base load, everybody's got the base load jargon the wrong way around. Base load is actually when Eskom design a power station, they go to the miners, they go to the big smelters, they go to big industrialists like car companies, and they go to shopping centers and they say, will you buy our electricity for the next 20 to 40 years? And they work at a rate, and 70 to 80% of the electricity is sold before the power station is even built. The balance of the electricity that Eskom are charging you for homeowners and small businesses, it's essentially paid for already. The other part of the problem is that nowhere in this document does it say exactly what Eskom are going to pay to embedded generators. So, I think there's a misunderstanding of how tariffs work from whoever wrote this document, and also there's no clarity on how much Eskom will pay embedded users to provide the grid with electricity. And sorry, one more thing is that Eskom harp on about a problem that happened between 2004 and about 2018, which is that the grid is the battery, and that caused a lot of problems with the so-called duck curve and so on. But nowadays, since 2008 to now, the cost of battery technology has come down by 95%, and the capability has gone up dramatically, which means that Eskom could actually buy electricity from me at 7 o'clock in the evening from my battery system, either by asking me to take myself off the grid or by asking me to provide them with excess electricity. So the environment has changed, and Eskom are confusing a lot of different issues in this document.
Yeah, and I mean, based on those concerns that you flagged, David, when NERSA considers this 120-page document that you've just broken down for us, what is it that they should be considering as they go through it ahead of tariff increases next year?
I think the first thing is they need to dissect who is responsible for what electricity cost and charge. Eskom seem to want to move their risk onto the consumer. Now, if I buy a computer, I'm doing it because someone else has taken the risk to get all the parts, put them together into a machine that I call a computer, and I use it. If I'm buying electricity, I'm not expecting to take on Eskom's risk of building a power station. So part of the problem is that Eskom want to move their risk to the user, and I think that's really unfair. Secondly, there's a confusion between a big user and a small user. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is there's no clarity on how much Eskom will pay embedded generators to supply the grid with electricity. There needs to be some, NERSA need to say that there are prosumers, the grid has changed. Eskom say in the document, we understand the grid has changed. So they know that things have changed. But the way they're going about modifying the tariffs without changing the way the system's structured. So Eskom provide about 30 gigawatts at the moment. My calculations suggest that we should have 300 gigawatts by 2030, and that we should have 200 gigawatts already. Where's the rest of our production? Well, we export all the raw materials and coal, and our product gets manufactured in other countries, whereas it could be manufactured here. So there's a whole lot of confusion, and I think that NERSA need to dissect the document and say to Eskom, you know, what is it exactly that you want? And then there's no clarity in terms of Eskom saying we've benchmarked ourselves against other utilities around the world. This is how they charge. This is how they work. So that there's all these kinds of things that NERSA will need to take into account.
I really wish we had a little bit more time, David, but that is all for now. That is independent energy expert David Lipschitz breaking down some of the details of that tariff structure that has now been proposed by Eskom, calling it very unfair, and that they're trying to implement something that big business uses onto the average consumer. With that